On New Year's Day of 2025, the footage of Nathaniel Coleman doing No One Mourns the Wicked dropped on the Mellow YouTube channel. And climbers pretty immediately zeroed in on one short section of the film. If you haven't watched it, you should.
The start holds have very specific divots for all your fingers, thumbs included. I place my left foot lightly and jump my right foot off the pad, using my whole body to carry its momentum and guide it into the precise heel. I pull my chest inwards and upwards. My heel pushes downward, foot and calf flexing as my hips rise. My mind is racing, but I reach for the right hand as if I had all the time in the world.
The comments were unanimous. This part was perfection. And I agree, I love this kind of breakdown, and this one is particularly well done. But in conversation with some climbers, it's become increasingly obvious that a lot of us have dramatically overvalued the role of microbeta, or at least misunderstand where it comes from and what role it actually plays. In this video, I want to discuss when microbeta is important and when it isn't, where we go wrong, and how we can get better at getting it right. Let's go. Now let me start by saying this. The details can be important, incredibly so, but not all of them, not all of the time, and most of them just aren't as important as we like to make them. And particularly when it comes to working a project, you shouldn't start at the details, maybe ever. Now, for the uninitiated, maybe even for the people who've just accepted it without thinking more about it, there are 3 levels of beta. There's obviously beta, the holds we use and the techniques required to move between those holds. Then, at one end of the spectrum is microbeta, the smaller details like exactly how you step onto a foothold, or which finger lands in which dimple of a grip, or how you have to slide slightly right before pulling up into that deep lock off, or you just can't seem to hold it. And those 2 things, beta and microbeta, we discuss often. If you've ever been to a climber party, you've seen it and you've heard it. It might be all you saw and heard. But if you listen close, there's something different going on in the conversations between high-level climbers. They're talking in terms of the other side of the spectrum, macrobeta. And the language we have for this macrobeta fits nicely into the 5 atomic elements of climbing movement that I've developed: tension, position, rhythm, effort, and commitment. Every single move you do contains elements of all 5, just in different ratios and combinations. And I use these elements to build a movement analysis tool that I truly think is a game changer for both coaches and for self-coach climbers. You can learn more about it at the link in the description. But all of these words, tension, position, rhythm, effort, and commitment, you'll hear when listening to good climbers discuss their attempts. But if you drop down a level to less experienced climbers, you're more likely to hear them only discussing specific techniques and arguing over whether they full crimp or half crimp or chisel or whatever names we've decided to give to every degree of finger flexion. It's not that good climbers don't discuss those things, but good climbers often settle on the beta, the holds and the moves, fairly quickly. And then they know that the adjustments are made at both ends of the spectrum, macro and micro. And I'd argue that the macro beta adjustments make a much bigger difference more often than micro beta adjustments. But micro beta is sexier, and I get why. I mean, there can be a lot of tangible details in one small move. You have to grab the hold exactly like this, with your thumb on this spike and not this one, and your middle finger has to settle into this little divot, and then you have to turn your hip just slightly so that you can step exactly with the outside of your big toe onto the left side of this crystal, so that as you turn to make the move, your toe actually shifts into this perfect dish, or you can't do the move. And all of those little details seem like they make a big difference because they're what happened right before you send. I made this little change and then I sent. But the problem with this blah, 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 or you can't do the move, is that very often on red point or on the send go, something is a little off, leading to the next thing being a little off. But you do the move anyway. Because microbeta is fragile. It's usually the first thing to fall apart under fatigue or pressure and is incredibly susceptible to tiny compounding errors. When that microbeta fails, what takes over to make sure we can execute the beta is the macrobeta, the tension or the position or effort. You get those things right first, and then good microbeta becomes even more valuable and can increase your chances dramatically. But good microbeta. Because let's be honest, most of the time our microbeta isn't really all that helpful. I mean, think back, or the next time you're working a project, take note of how many times you come up with microbeta that you're positive of, only to discard it later, or only to forget it, or not need it on the send. It's going to be a lot of times. And it's not always going to be the case that this happens, but we do get it wrong more often than we get it right. And we often linger on bad beta, and then as a result, useless microbeta for far longer than the really good climbers do. But even though I think it's not as important as we want it to be, I don't necessarily think that finding the microbeta is a waste of time. And that's because microbeta of all kinds is a byproduct of something I believe is incredibly important: awareness. Nathaniel didn't come up with those ideas by standing on the ground and simply intellectualizing it. He came up with them by trying the moves while aware of what felt good and what felt like it wasn't quite working, and then trying to come up with better, more repeatable solutions over and over. And as awareness improves, which only happens with time and doing more climbing at a variety of difficulty levels, but particularly just outside of your comfort zone, then both your macro and micro beta skills will also improve. What I see happening, though, is that many climbers very quickly start dialing into the micro beta for every hold and every move, putting tick marks everywhere and finding the perfect way to grab everything. Often, that's a waste of time, for a simple reason. Most hard moves don't leave you with time to get the holds perfect. Take this move, for example. This is a boulder I recently did the FA of, probably around V8. And this one move took me several sessions. My first several attempts, as you can see here, it was clear that commitment and tension were going to be the things that made the difference. The macro beta. But when examining the hold, I want to get it exactly like this. I could even land it with only 3 fingers because my wrist actually feels stronger in that position versus having all 4 on. But I'd really like to have my pointer finger land in this little divot. But there's a problem. It's the target hold of a violent move. And I've already confirmed that commitment and tension are the major themes. So I tried ticking it and just hitting it a few times from under the roof with my feet on the ground. And never once hit it right. You can see that I instinctively adjust every time because I'm not really even close, but I knew I'd never be able to adjust on the go until after I made the next couple of moves. So I ignored the micro beta that I'd come up with and focused instead on the macro beta, the tension and the commitment. And I then realized that for the next move, I'd have to tap into a new level of effort because I didn't have the hold how I wanted it. And so I tried again and fought through the discomfort of having the hold completely wrong and got through the sequence anyway. And I rested, pulled back on for my first red point attempt, applied the tension and commitment I'd learned, and stuck the hold again. And honestly, I'm not even sure how well I stuck it that time. I knew I could do the next moves no matter how I landed it as long as I fought for it. And I got the thing done. On a day when I'd gone up only to try that one move that I hadn't even done yet. All because I let go of the micro beta and focused instead on the macro beta. And if you actually take in what Nathaniel says in the film, in this section that's so beautifully done, the actual micro beta, the dimples his fingers go in, where his thumb sits, placing his foot lightly, that all happens just in stepping off the pads, in a moment where he has complete control. It's building his confidence. But when he makes the big move, it's all macro beta.
My heel will come off, and I don't fight it. I need to keep my shoulders close to the wall. So close I have to crane my neck to avoid hitting my head. My full focus is on balancing the push and pull of my left and right hand as my hips and legs peel away from the wall. I let my body act instinctively as the small muscles in my core and legs play the balancing act of controlling the swing. and keeping the pressure in my hands as constant as possible. A sudden change in force would mean losing my grip, and the attempt is over.
It's all Macrobeta: commitment, tension, position, rhythm, effort. He says, I let my body act instinctively. And the science supports this. Study after study shows that if we consciously try to control the body while performing, we interrupt the movement. It's theorized that this is the reason athletes choke. They're trying too hard to control their body. So what Nathaniel's saying is exactly how science explains the performance of high-level athletes. They are intellectual in preparation, but instinctual in performance. They aren't thinking about the microbeta anymore. And the fact is, Nathaniel Coleman, through years of climbing on hard projects, pressure and competition, and time spent intentionally learning, has developed the awareness to determine which microbeta matters and which doesn't, the pieces of moves he needs to keep in mind and which he can let play out on their own, and when to discard things and move on. He knows when the macrobeta is the better answer. And when things go wrong, when his plan doesn't work out, he knows how to fight for it anyway. But until you've built Nathaniel Coleman level awareness, which may never happen, the best thing you can do is to keep re-examining, keep questioning, and keep trying to improve your chances. But between every single time you do that, give a solid effort and fight for it. It's how we learn what to do in the moment, and it's how we get better. See you next time.